Hello MLG fans, and welcome to this broadcast as we're going to be bringing you some games from the North American Online Qualifiers Winners Bracket round number 3. I of course am Nursky. Joining me going to be Kibbles. Kibbles, say hi to the fans out there.
What's going on, MLG fans? Really psyched to be casting this series for you today between our two top-notch players. Nursky, would you be so kind and tell us who they are?
Oh, I will indeed. First off, spawning as our Red Terran, now part of Team Light, has gone by the name Kawaii Rice in the past. Not going to be going by Kawaii Light, I think, for the purposes of this cast, though. We'll just call him Kawaii. He's, of course, Kawaii. And then his opponent going to be spawning as our Blue Protoss on the bottom right-hand corner of the map, Antigua Shipyard. Part of Team Complexity Gaming. He, of course, is going to be Minigun. A little bit of sound effects I can hear in the background coming out of Kibbles a little bit there. Maybe a Minigun fan, I don't know.
Well, you know, I gotta say, I'm a fan of both of these players in all honesty. I've gotten to cast them in the past, and their playstyles just really impressed me. I'm hoping for a great macro game. It is Antigua Shipyard after all. But there is the possibility that we could see some gateway timing pressure out of Minigun. Is pretty much no matter what map you wind up on, that's going to be a possibility. The warping mechanic has just really changed the dynamic of StarCraft 2, I think. In making that warp gate timings a possibility on pretty much virtually any map that you're placed on. So we do see Minigun getting a probe right now, getting a little bit of scouting information with it at the top of Kawaii's ramp. And that scouting information is going to be quite limited, however, to a supply depot and barracks that is just now completing. So we'll see what he's going to play with this. Taking a look back in his base, what do we see, Nurse? Yeah, I see a cyber core going down and some gas being mined. Only with one probe, though.
Yeah, looks like he pulled off some of his probes or did not put in all his probes into that gas, so just mining with one. So it looks like he could be thinking about expanding in the near future, but just as I say that, goes ahead and throws 2 more harvesters onto that gas. So I don't know if that's a little bit of indecision out of Minigun's part based on what limited information he was able to get out of Kawaii, or maybe he's just, accidentally forgot to throw 2 harvesters on there. Never can know 100% for sure exactly what's going through the mind of the players without actually really interviewing them right after the game.
Warp gate is started up by Minigun. And I saving a good amount of chrono boost here. Gonna be curious to see. Okay, gonna chrono boost a Stalker, as well as that warp gate research chasing the SCV with his Zealot, but it's gonna get away with these. And taking a look up at Kawaii, he's constructing a bunker at the forefront of his base. After getting the scouting intel, he really doesn't know too much of what's going on. It's at this point, with the pretty late gas timing that he managed to see, there was no follow-up right after the cyber core of a gas. So Kawaii knows that the 2 things on the table for Minigun here pretty much going to be a 4-gate or an expansion, and he can be pretty confident his opponent's going to expand, but it does look like he's playing it safe. He's dropping 2 barracks down, and behind that 2 refineries. So that is the safer of the 2 options. Sometimes we do see Terran players opt for the refineries first, but he just can't be positive. And honestly, if his opponent did 4-gate him, Minigun were to go for that route, and Kawaii had dropped 2 refineries, he would be in for a world of trouble. So playing it safe, I like it, but we do have both players at this point expanding.
Yeah, it looks like both these guys can be playing a little bit more for the mid game. Don't really mind that, to be completely honest. I think largely for most Protoss players, they've sort of started to get that whole 1-1-1 push timing type of play out of Terran somewhat figured out. It's not a push that you see killing quite as many Protoss players as it used to. As with any metagame shift, it does always take a little bit of time for the players really to figure out exactly how they want to play a particular shift in the metagame. So I tend to see a lot more Terran players just going back to a more standard 1-racks expand type of play. You do occasionally still see the 1-1-1 style of push. Matter of fact, we were both casting some games, saw that a little bit earlier tonight in another tournament. We do have the stim first coming out of course, Kawaii. Don't mind that at all. Probably is going to be switching into a lot more Marauder production as time does go on. So instead of getting that really fast combat shields, don't mind seeing him go for the stim first. Do see a lot of Terran players tend to do that. And I don't mind this play at all either out of Minigun, going with 3 warp gates and then getting up a robotics facility that of course is going to make him safe just in case his player wants some kind of delayed Banshees off a 2-base. Always good to have the robotics for that. And also Colossus just so strong against bio play. And I think in some respects a little bit easier to get yourself to than trying to get to Templar Tech really early in the game.
Yeah, and you know, the funny thing is you only have to make a few ghosts. They're already made out of barracks if you want to deal with High Templar. Conversely, excuse me, if you're up against Colossus, you got to make a lot of Vikings. Depending on the number of Colossus you're dealing with, of course, but it's not a very easy, oh, I already have this building, and, you know, we don't see even a factory out, completed as of yet for Kawaii, and there's already a robotics bay in construction, so some Colossus going to be out here, probably, he'll probably have his first one pop, honestly, maybe before Medivacs even gets started. We're going to see. It's a good 50-second build time for this starport, and it's going to have Chrono Boost on this guy as soon as this robotics bay does finish up, so we do see the Kawaii's moving out across the board. He's out in the middle with his army and could apply a little bit of pressure here if he so desires. But there's a good amount of sentries here. Minigun's looking pretty safe for the moment.
Yeah, and Minigun actually, interestingly enough, going to build a Warp Prism with his first round of production here out of this robotics facility. And you know what? I like this play actually out of Protoss players. I don't think enough Protoss players have really been utilizing Warp Prisms, especially since the buff. I mean, before the buff, we saw a few people doing some cutesy things with them, especially the players more willing to experiment. But actually, interestingly enough, we do have Kawaii is going to get lucky enough to spot this Warp Prism as it moves out, having a Marine catch it, just have positioned that Marine a moment ago. So kind of a little bit of luck being on the side of Kawaii to spot that Warp Prism early. We now see him actually throwing down a scan to see what kind of army Minigun has. And actually Minigun kind of has a little bit of a paltry army right now. Does have his first Colossus on the way along with Thermal Lance, but not really a big army right now. I really think some kind of a fast stem push by Kawaii could have really done a lot of damage to Minigun, but with both players playing so economically, just wasn't really in the cards. Now we do see this Warp Prism moving along the back end of the map, but there is a Marine already going to spot this Warp Prism once again, so he will know what angle it's coming in from. See a missile turret positioned already in his base, and it looks like moving a couple of forces over towards his main, expecting that Warp Prism to come that way, but actually we see Minigun going to actually drop this down over here in this northeastern corner. It looks like Minigun might be getting ready to try and go with a little bit of Colossus pressure. We have seen plenty of Protoss players, Kibbles, wait for about 2 Colossus and Thermal Lance and then push out onto the map, but he's going to need to be a little bit careful because Kawaii right now out in the middle of the map as well.
He just doesn't want to overextend here. Definitely wants to play careful, and he's a little overextended right now. Yeah, needs to fall back. He's going to lose a sentry, 2 stalkers. He's lost 3 zealots, 4 zealots, 5. He's losing a lot of units here, and I only see 2 burning red corpses on the ground, Nersky. That was not a good exchange for Minigun.
No, not a good exchange at all. I think Minigun really would have been better off waiting for, of course, his Thermal Lance research and that second Colossus, because that's really where that timing is its strongest. A lot of times Terran players won't have Vikings prepared for those first 2 Colossus when they pop out. You can hit a really strong timing, do a lot of damage to a Terran player when those first 2 Colossus and some good force fields, but he really just diminished the potency of that army quite a bit, down to 2 sentries now, lost some of his sentries in that little bit of exchange, lost some zealots as well, and now is going to give Kawaii a little more time to actually get Viking production going. Only has 2 Vikings out right now, but going to be producing 2 more immediately, and has his natural really choked up. It's going to be really hard for Minigun to actually push into this. Tons of bunkers down over here at the natural. Kawaii playing very defensively here, realizing that this push was coming.
Oh, as he should. This is a very nice Protoss timing, as we were talking about earlier, the 2/3 Colossus timing push. And Kawaii is really invested into upgrades. He's got 2 engineering base right now.
Oh, and some zealots in the main now being warped in by that Warp Prism, pounding on a couple of SCVs there. At the same time that this army at the front is actually engaging him. Does manage to pick off the Warp Prism, though, it looks like, so just going to get down a zealot or 2 before that's cleaned up, because of course Kawaii was ready for that. But sorry to interrupt you there, Kibbles, but there was something going on in the main at the same time that we were watching this.
Oh yeah, Minigun is doing an excellent job with these multi-pronged attacks, making use of that Warp Prism. Even though it was scouted by Kawaii, he kind of just waited until Kawaii forgot about it, in all honesty. By pressuring at the front, making more pertinent things that the Kawaii need to pay attention to. Fantastic job there. So the time is beginning to pass, though, for Minigun and this pressure. You know, it is a timing. Now he's continuing to hold in here, but notice that Kawaii started to try to make moves outwards. He's bringing his orbital out across the map. He's bringing out his Vikings. And yeah, Minigun's going to be pulling back because the strength of that timing has now passed. There's Vikings on the board, and our Terran player has, honestly, he's gotten some benefits. His upgrades are now kicking in. He's about to complete +2 and already has 1-1 all the way done. And looking back in the base of Minigun, I mean, he is not at this moment, he has not put as much investment into the very, very late game.
Right.
He put a lot of effort into that timing, and now he's throwing down the double forge and really working on all these simultaneous upgrades. He's getting charge, 2-1, I think this is. Yes, 2-2, excuse me. And he's gotten his third completed, and the assimilator just wrapped up. So expect Minigun to now start macroing as hard as
Looks like Kawaii, though, is going to try and get a little bit aggressive here in the middle of the map. But throws down a scan and decides better of trying to engage 5 Colossus on a high ground. Probably going to build a couple of more Vikings. Yeah, actually see him producing Vikings immediately upon seeing that there is indeed 5 of those prepared for him. Do have a probe scouting here for a potential 4th, but the 3rd, of course, is going to be down now. Minigun should already be aware of that. He floated that orbital out basically in plain sight as he was trying to push Minigun back off of his base so that he could take that expansion. But I really don't mind at all. I think that was a smart play by Kawaii to realize, oh, he's got a few more Colossus than I was actually expecting already out on the board. I'll just back up for a moment, and then I'll go push again once I get those couple of extra Vikings that might really make the difference in an engagement. Because a lot of Protoss players really play this matchup a lot differently. Some will go real heavy Colossus, 5, 6 Colossus. Others will maybe only make 2 or 3 and go a lot heavier on gateway units and go for that Templar tech faster. So, I mean, for every Terran player, you really got to play it by ear as to exactly the type of counts that the Protoss player is going for. And now Charge has finished up, so that's definitely going to make Minigun's army quite a bit stronger, Kibbles.
Yeah, he's got a grand total of 20 Zealots in this composition. It's going to make a huge difference as to the amount of DPS he's able to put out. I want to point out the really nice photon cannon positioning in this 3rd. Minigun was able to deny a drop during all of that. And Kawaii, he's doing really good with his unit positioning, but I'd really like to see him do more with drops. He's made an attempt, but that's really been all we've seen. And we were talking about this earlier tonight. You know, the Protoss ball is simply more deadly than the Terran ball in most circumstances. Now, Kawaii, I believe, is a little bit ahead in upgrades. I don't know if that's still the case.
We have a drop, though, into the main. Yeah, Kawaii does miss with a couple units, though. Picks the units back up. This might force Minigun to back up, but we see Minigun just backing up with a handful of forces. Probably wants to try and just warp in a few forces to support this. Needs to be a little bit careful, though. Is sending a Colossus forward with this. Is a little bit naked here. Vikings could go in and just snipe this single Colossus, and that is exactly what they're going to do. And they do manage to pick off that one singular Colossus. So actually a halfway decent pick off by Kawaii. Does get a couple pylons as well, and still retains this drop.
Well, he's miscontrolling his Vikings right now, and he loses only 1 Viking. Nice. So Kawaii actually, he got the Twilight Counts before Blink was completed. This drop is still doing damage. This is 2 medevacs guys in a very predictable position that are proving to be a massive problem for Minigun. He's putting so much effort into defending against these. Finally cleans it up. Doesn't kill the medevacs. He just finally deals with these marauders. But that was beautiful out of Kawaii. And he got that Colossus. This is a really, really nice play.
Yeah, very good pick off there by Kawaii. Taking out that single Colossus, also doing a lot of damage. Now getting a little sloppy, though, leaving a couple of units over here at this Zalaga Tower. Does manage to lose a Viking there. It's a little bit sloppy, but now we have Kawaii going to actually be trying to take this center expansion, and I'm not 100% sure about this move here. I mean, on this version of the map, there is no gold base, so there's no real benefit to taking this middle expansion here. The planetaries are decent, especially against Zerg, but against Protoss with, of course, Colossus, if they can hold that middle ground ever, they can quite easily take this out.
Yeah.
I'm not sure he might have been better served just actually taking that top expansion. Not a decent storm goes off. gets a couple of the units, and then the Templar gets sniped for his trouble. Looks like these guys are thinking of engaging Kibbles. Now they actually go at it. We see some EMPs going down, getting a giant chunk of Minigun's army. Now we see those Vikings going to work, taking out a bunch of the Colossus. You hear those snipes going down as well to help snipe out some of the Templars so that they can't actually storm the army of Kawaii. And Minigun are going to be forced into a full retreat here. Shields very low on a lot of his units from those very good EMPs out of Kawaii. And Kawaii is actually looking to be in a pretty good position here. Now has this base established. As I said before, a little bit dangerous on the base location, just because of what Minigun can do from this high ground. And this is exactly what I was talking about. It's like he's lucky he did not transfer more SCVs over there. Could have lost a lot to that single little tiny Colossus push at that time.
So now it looks like coming in with these Vikings is Kawaii. Really wants to kill off that Colossus that's sitting at just a grand total of 60 health and shield combined. Kind of a little bit of a stalemate. And here's the thing. With this fourth, Kawaii is asserting the fact that he's going to be the one holding map control for this game. It actually would be a great move. Well, hold on a second, guys. He's moving now in for this engagement, and he stems his entire army, which is a huge commitment because he has no medevacs. He has a grand total of 2 with no energy. So any stim that Kawaii chooses to do, he needs to engage when he stims. He has, I want to point that out before, he had no medevacs. Now he has 2. Stims are a huge decision for Kawaii to make literally every single time he makes them. And he's done 2 now where he's not engaged after them. So moving up with these ghosts, throwing down some EMPs. EMPs a huge chunk of that army. The Colossus are so out of position right now. Is Kawaii going to stim? He hasn't yet. Now he's going to stim and stutter step backwards. Storms going down on the army, doing a good amount of damage here. And Kawaii is now going to chase the retreating force of Minigun across the center of the map. And this is exactly what Kawaii needed. Nursky, I wanted to mention that we saw Kawaii take this expansion as opposed to taking one that's far away. There are huge benefits to taking one far away on this map. If your opponent tries to go to kill it with his army, he's going to be completely out of position. It really leads to a situation where he can't move his army to go kill your base. If you make it a planetary, pretty much indefensible. And now we have Kawaii. He has map control, and he's going to hold it pretty firmly for a while. He's got this planetary that he can always fall back to. He's going to refuse to be pushed out. A
little bit of an engagement, though, here over near the 4th base of Minigun. Looks like Kawaii wants to try and take it. Minigun's going to go for the defense on it. Does not feel like he can lose it. Gets off a good storm. A lot of these units very low on hit points. We see the Ghost actually throwing down snipes over here to try and take out a few of these units. Haven't seen snipe used quite as much in a TVP as we have in this game, but now a bunch of the Ghosts getting fried up there by the Colossus, but then allowing the Ghost to actually go ahead and just sit there and snipe away cloaked. Now going to be moving forward. Storms go down. It looks like Minigun really wants to try and take this base out. Oh, really good storm goes down. Gets a bunch of the SCVs and mules over at this base. Kawaii, though, barely hanging on. Minigun trying to take him out. 152 to 132 supply. Slight lead here for Minigun. Not the situation you want to be in when you are a Terran on bio.
Minigun's playing this perfectly. He realizes that Kawaii has no medevacs. And so he's doing these small engagements, hitting a lot of Kawaii's units, and then pulling back and allowing his shields on his units to recharge while Kawaii can't heal. So consequently, look at these storms. Like, he's just poking away at Kawaii's army. And now, after that one big engagement that Kawaii won, he didn't let none of his units heal. None of them healed. And consequently, he's just taking catastrophic losses in all these engagements because he has injured units going in. And storms are just storms, zealots, Colossus, everything is shredding him up. One misrallied Colossus there from Minigun, but I don't see Kawaii. Honestly, I mean, he's just sustaining too much damage on his units, and he's not able to heal them because he doesn't have medevacs.
Yeah, I think this decision to take this base where he took it is really starting to bite him in the butt here, as he's really being forced into a situation where he's had to defend this base because it was his only 4th base. Would have been to 1 base mining if he did not defend it. I think he really thought he could be the aggressor and hold that middle ground position, but has not been able to do it. Minigun has not let him at all, and now Kawaii is down 105 to 175 supply because Minigun's had the option of force engagements because this base is hanging out here in this middle area of the map. I mean, Kawaii's really had put himself in a position where he has no choice but to defend this base, so even when he doesn't want to engage Minigun, he's basically getting forced into situations where he has to engage Minigun, and Minigun has been taking full advantage of it. Minigun now even taking a 5th base, spreading himself up over here in the top right-hand corner. Very smart move. I do like that move by Minigun because by taking that base in that top right-hand corner, if for some reason their armies trade funny and there is any kind of a weird base trade situation, being spread out on your bases is going to give you a much better chance of winning that than, of course, any other scenario. Now, Kawaii does have a couple of SCVs getting transferred over here to this new base he has established over here on the left-hand side of the map, but immediately Minigun warping in a handful of Zealots, already still denying mining over here from this planetary fortress, and those Zealots going to clean up everything and force the lift here. And now Kawaii Rice is in a situation where I think he's going to basically have one more push, and then he will be done. Even with some really good EMPs, though, I don't think he's going to be able to take out this army. Really good feedbacks, getting a couple of the Ghosts. Ghosts, oh, sitting in the storm, needs to get them out of there. They do have EMPs available, but not using them just yet on the army. Chasing the army now. I think he wants to snipe out some of those Templar, and is indeed doing that. Sniping several of the Templar. Really good snipes actually coming out of Kawaii, making do with what units he has, because Minigun does not have an observer with his army to actually clean up these Ghosts. But now, after all those snipes, getting very low on energy. But the big thing here for Kawaii is that he has finally, temporarily at least, taken control of this middle ground, is now just lifting this orbital away so that he can land it elsewhere to use the mules. But I don't think he's going to have it for very long, and he wasn't able to mine for it for so long, Kibbles, that I think it's going to be too little too late to establish that position.
Yeah, I mean, he's just had bad engagement after. He had one good engagement, and from there, everything was just downhill for him. So now we're going to see Minigun push out with a 200-200 army against the 100-200 Kawaii, and simple numbers game from there, Naruski. It's pretty easy looking at the army of Kawaii and then looking at this giant death ball, which is Minigun's path to victory. He's going to be pushing here for a W in any second.
Honestly surprised that Kawaii has held on as long as he has and not allowed Minigun to actually just push down and end the game. I honestly can't help but feel like Minigun does not realize exactly how far ahead he is against Kawaii. And the fact that that is basically all of Kawaii's army right there. We have even a couple of Ghosts just hanging out in the middle of the map over near Minigun's side of the map. Kawaii basically just, there's nothing really left of him. I'm just really waiting right now for Minigun to finally push out. He has a bazillion minerals banked, and now finally Minigun going to finally push the issue here. But no, Minigun's going to back up again. Oh my lord, Minigun, if you only knew how far ahead you were, you would have ended this game ages ago. And now finally Minigun's going to decide to push. I think he's finally realized just how far ahead he is against Kawaii. Kawaii now down to 72 supply. Getting a lot of damage done with the units he does have available to him, but hasn't really been able to do anything anywhere on the map for a long time. Hasn't been able to drop, hasn't had the medevacs for it. It's been having to replace a lot of Vikings. More Vikings now coming in. Going to try and snipe a Colossus. Minigun might actually just let him do it. But this planetary can't get up, and I mean at this point Kawaii is basically mined out, has no minerals. Here comes the SCVs into support. Really good storm, just obliterates all the units. And there's a bunch of feedbacks on the medevacs, and the GG out of Kawaii as Minigun will take game number 1, Kibbles. So really well played game there by Minigun in game number 1 to give him the 1-0 advantage over Kawaii.
Yeah, you know, I think the game pretty much boiled down to the two things we said it over and over. The planetary positioning for the 4th for Kawaii, and the complete and utter lack of virtually any medevacs after that huge initial engagement where he preserved a ton of units and then lost them all to an engagement about 2 minutes later.
Yep, definitely agree. But we're going to be moving into game number 2, guys. So stay tuned here to MLG and checking out the VODs on MLG TV. Thank you very much, guys. We'll be right back with game number 2. Hold on.